Police briefing us on the very latest since its capture. Let's listen in.
Okay, so we'll begin with Chief Ed Rossler.
Good afternoon. First, I want to thank our community, not only in Fairfax County, but in the entire region. It's an alert community member that has led to the arrest of Mr. Asser in this case. So I must thank our community members for the support through social media, also the media, yourself here today, helping us get the message out to take a violent felon off the streets of our region. So thank you. On March 20th, Mr. Wuzan Asser was arrested by the FBI for a series of bank robberies in Fairfax County and our region. Mr. Asser was detained in the Alexandria City Jail. On March 27th, Mr. Asser attempted suicide in his cell. He was then eventually transported to Inova Fairfax Hospital for treatment of his self-inflicted injuries. While at the hospital, the United States Marshal Service that coordinated the transportation had a private security contracted firm maintain custody of Mr. Asser. At 3 o'clock this morning, Mr. Asser got into a struggle with one of the security guards, and a round was discharged from the security guard's weapon. It's unknown at this time who fired the round, but fortunately no one was reported to be injured. Mr. Asser then fled with the weapon into a nearby residential neighborhood, where he then broke into the trunk of a resident's vehicle. The resident came out of their house and was proceeding to commute to work. While commuting to work in the area of the hospital, Mr. Asser started to kick out the back seat from inside the trunk. The vehicle then crashed, and Mr. Asser then committed a carjacking of the vehicle and fled with the vehicle. The driver of the vehicle was slightly injured and treated. Mr. Asser then fled in an unknown direction. At the same time that we were looking for the vehicle, we were methodically going through every single building at the campus of Inova Fairfax Hospital. We then, around 10:30 this morning, found Mr. Asser's car in the Annandale area abandoned. Mr. Asser then carjacked a second car and fled the area. The Fairfax County Police has recovered the first vehicle that was carjacked, including what we believe to be the security guard's weapon inside the car. Moments ago, in the District of Columbia, in the 6th Police District, an alert community member identified Mr. Asser through all the social media outlets where we put our message out and called the Metropolitan Police Department, and then Mr. Asser was arrested by the Metropolitan Police. And we are glad that he is in custody and that no one was gravely harmed during this event. I have with me representatives from the FBI and the United States Marshal Service that are prepared to provide brief comments and to help answer your questions.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bobby Matheson. I'm the United States Marshal for the Eastern District of Virginia. As the Chief said, the prisoner came into our custody on March the 20th for his initial hearing in the Alexandria Federal Courthouse. He was booked into the Alexandria Detention Center on the 20th. On the 27th, shortly after 1 p.m. in the afternoon, the prisoner at that time tied a bedsheet around his neck and dove off one of the tiers in the Alexandria Detention Center in an attempt to commit suicide. He was treated by medical personnel at the time in Alexandria City Jail, was then transported by the rescue squad to Inova Fairfax Hospital. For the first 24 hours of his hospital stay, his observation, Alexandria deputy sheriffs maintained custody of him and maintained observation over him. After 24 hours, contract guard services, Allied Protective Services took over with a 2-person detail to maintain 24-hour observation and in custody while Asai was being treated for his injuries. To my knowledge, his only injury at the time was a broken nose. This morning, I guess shortly around 3 a.m., while under observation by the two contract security officers, the prisoner overpowered the female contract security officer, managed to get her weapon from her, confronted the male security officer. One shot was fired by the male security officer from Allied Protective Services. Thank God no one was hit, no one was injured. The prisoner then escaped through a stairwell in and over Fairfax Hospital. As the chief probably said, the manhunt started shortly after 3 a.m. this morning with numerous events and carjackings. That's all I have for the Marshal Service at this point.
Was he handcuffed this morning when at 3 a.m. he overpowered his guards?
Yes, he was.
He overpowered them with handcuffs?
He was shackled. What I don't know, because it's an active investigation at this point, I don't know exactly what restraints were on him at the time, but he was in his on the hospital gurney bed.
Is this going to lead to a guard and not mark anyone else, or this was pre-planned, or that he planned to meet up with a girlfriend or family member?
We have no indication at this time if anything was pre-planned through a third party. Is this going to lead to a
review of how you handle security of prisoners in a medical setting?
Yes, it will.
How
Do
come
you see any
had
changes you should make? Do you see any changes right off the bat that you should make in terms of security?
Well, based on the full facts of the investigation, what we'll have to do is find out what happened, if the contract security personnel violated policy in terms of shackles and restraints, and once that full investigation is done, we'll certainly make changes to protocol.
Do you typically use contract guards instead of marshals?
A number of years ago, I'm told perhaps almost as much as 10 years ago, headquarters okayed national contract services for security personnel.
Do you have details about how he was shackled?
I don't at this time.
Was he shot in the hallway or in a room?
The shot was in the hallway, was lodged actually in the room. The bullet was lodged in the wall in the room.
Is he a U.S. citizen?
I don't know at this point.
Chief, can you fill in some of the blanks in terms of this manhunt that went on in Annandale to where this man was captured in Washington, D.C. after that second carjacking, I believe on Cherry Lane? What happened between then and the actual capture?
We had reports from community members that they observed the man running through the woods, and he came upon another house and there were occupants there, and then he took their vehicle and fled.
Did he speak with them? Did he threaten them in any way?
I don't have that information at this time, but obviously they were threatened by him and turned over their vehicle to them. That's all I know at this point in time. As I mentioned earlier, we conducted a ground search and an air search in this area, and through social media and the partnership in the region with the community and other law enforcement agencies, an alert community member spotted him on the streets of D.C.
So is that the third vehicle or second one?
Right now, the second car has not been located, so we still need help in locating that vehicle. Our public information office has put out that vehicle information. We'll give it to you again at the end of this conference, but we need your help in locating that second vehicle.
If we could hold the questions to the end, we still have a representative from the FBI to provide some additional information for you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Cox. I'm the Acting Assistant Director.
You can come to the mics, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Greg Cox. I am the Acting Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Washington Field Office. We had, since October 2013, the FBI Washington Field Office, through the Violent Crimes Task Force, has been conducting an investigation into 12 bank robberies that have occurred in Northern Virginia between October 2013 and March 2015. The SI is believed to be responsible for each of these bank robberies. We can at this point confirm that he was arrested somewhere in the vicinity of Minnesota Avenue and 25th Street in Southeast DC, and we want to thank the public for their assistance during this search because their tips were critical to his capture. Now we'll turn it back over for questions.
Was he taken into custody without incident, or what happened in DC?
I don't know the answer to that.
How was he dressed and captured?
Was it on a metro bus? Was he walking down the street? Know any more details about the capture?
We don't have that information yet.
When captured, how was he dressed?
I don't know the answer to that.
Any additional charges?
No additional charges at this time.
I can let you know that for the crimes in Fairfax County, we are actively processing the crime scenes, and we will place appropriate charges for each of the offenses he committed in Fairfax County. We'll work with our federal and local partners on that.
Did anyone, in speaking with people that were involved in the situation, get any sense of things that he might have said to anyone, or anything he might have expressed to these people as he was, encountering them throughout this process?
We're actively interviewing people as we speak right now, but I don't have any details of that. I'm sorry, Jeff.
Chief, a picture of the girlfriend has been put out. Can you tell us more about that?
I can't hear, too.
How does a man in a gown and no shoes get into the trunk of a car?
That's currently under investigation. I don't know if the car was open or if he has skills to force his way in, but we'll provide you updates on those.
The girlfriend's picture had been put out. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, that was originally put out because he might have been in the company of her. That was not the case today.
Do you know anything about her? Was she involved in this in any sort of way?
I have no information to link her to this event today.
Can you give us an estimate of how many officers and different agencies were involved?
I'd be giving you a guesstimate, several hundred. We had a full contingent of Virginia State Police, the FBI, the Marshal Service, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms staff, Vienna Police, Fairfax County Sheriff's Office, a multitude. But I'll have a better answer once we debrief and account for everybody.
Chief, I have a question for Mr. Matheson.
Marshall, can we get back to the shackled thing? Was he or was he not shackled in that hospital room?
To my knowledge, he was shackled.
And how did he get out of those shackles?
That's still being investigated at this point.
Is it possible he had one of the guards let him loose?
There's no indication at this point.
You mentioned a violation of policy, if those guards violated anything. He took down the woman. Where was the male guard? Were they together at that point?
No, she was in the room by herself at the point he had gone out for a restroom break.
Is that a violation of policy?
I'm not certain at this point.
What would you be looking at this point in regards to the number of guards that you have taking care of an inmate? This is highly unusual, we're told, by the chief.
Yeah, two people should be able to certainly guard a prisoner securely. What we're investigating right now is what his shackles, were they loosened, were they not on, was something not followed. So that's currently under investigation.
Can you tell us anything about the guards, how much experience they have?
Can you tell us about where he was in the hospital and what exactly it took for him to get out through that stairwell? Was he on the first floor, a second floor, a locked unit, out a stairwell? I mean, was it an extensive escape out of the building?
I'm not certain if it was the second or the third floor, but it was an end unit, an end room. After the initial shot was fired, he walked down the hallway with the, from our understanding, with the female contract guard, sort of as a shield, and at some point released her, and he ran down the hallway, not far, within 10 yards or so.
Is it a locked unit? Was he in a standard
room?
Standard room on a standard floor. No special protocols being taken for him as far as the fact that
correct.
Security risk, other than the fact that he was supposed to be shot in his back.
Correct.
And then was the shot fired after Asai had the weapon, and then after he sort of, I guess, shed the woman? Is that your understanding of when the shot was fired?
I'm not absolutely certain at this point when the shot was actually fired. That's under investigation by Fairfax County.
The male security officer fired the shot. Did the chief say that?
Yeah.
Yes.
To be clear on, the male security officer during the struggle fired that one shot.
That's correct.
All right. So can you also expand on, just to be clear, he went to a house, climbed in a trunk, and hid in the trunk? Is that what's going on?
What I do know is the apartment complex right adjacent to the hospital is where he secured himself inside the trunk of a car. And as the chief said, and I have no knowledge of how he actually got into that trunk of the car.
So you're holding a gun to the female guard's head, to her back. Can you explain how was he holding her hostage? I
don't know at this point, but he obviously had her weapon.
Has the weapon been recovered?
I know you have a lot of questions. This is a very active investigation, and I promise to you we will get more information to each and every one of you as this unfolds. Some of the questions you have, we're interviewing people as we speak, as I mentioned earlier. I just want to be absolutely clear that I'm thanking each and every community member in this region and all of you for your support in apprehending a violent felon that's no longer on the streets. So thank you very much.
Talk a little bit more about how the person in the community.
At this point, we're going to go ahead and conclude the news briefing. When all the federal agencies and all the local agencies, as the chief said, we are going to continue to have some debriefings throughout the day. It's an ongoing investigation. There are multiple interviews going on and multiple people that they have to speak with. As the additional information becomes available, we will continue to share that with you through our Twitter feed, through our WordPress blog, as well as with our federal partners.
Can you spell all the names of the folks?
Absolutely. So it's Chief Edwin, E-W-D-I-N, Roessler, R-O-E-S-S-L-E-R, from the Fairfax County Police Department. From the U.S. Marshal's Office, we have Bobby Matheson, M-A-T-H-I-E-S-O-N. And from the FBI, we had FBI Acting Assistant Director in Charge, Greg Cox, C-O-X.
Is that one G or two?
I do not anticipate any. Thankfully, we have him in custody. As the chief explained, there are some debriefings that are going to be going on very shortly here. All the federal partners and local partners there's several meetings that they have to piece together all the details. We have the same questions that you have. So as we move forward with this investigation, those are things that we hope to have answered for you. And as that new information becomes available, we will have that put out.
Was that 1G or 2 on break?
1G.
You're not expecting to then do, you're going to cut here. There's no reason.
Correct.
All righty. Well, that news conference just wrapped up.